This is TWiT.
Intel's decision recently to become a foundry. And I'm really curious what you think of that, Connie, because Intel, in a way, it looks to me throwing up the white flag, saying, yeah, we just can't get down to these 5 nanometer, 3 nanometer processes that TSMC is doing. And our chip design is kind of laggard. Even AMD is starting to beat us. I know. Let's change our business model. Instead of designing and making our own chips, we'll make chips for other people. Even, he said, Pat Gelsinger's the new CEO, even Apple, should they ever want to come to our factories. Is Intel saying we're not going to design anymore? We're just going to make other people's chips? This is their new business model.
I think that they've been slow in the mobile market, as we all know.
Yes,
the history of Intel.
They missed it.
Screwing up the mobile market,
Yeah.
yes, is legendary. That's the subject of many books. I think their decision to announce the Foundry ties in, I hate to bring it up and be the, economist on this call, but
Please do.
The supply chain, right? Both the prior administration and now Biden care about made in America. You're not going to completely replace the chip industry that's in Asia. But I actually interviewed the woman who is the new Made in America czar for Biden. And what they want to get to is enough redundancy here in the U.S., enough supply. So if something does happen, again, some sort of global event that disrupts the supply chain, that there will be capacity in the U.S. So that means that there's investment, there's money that you can go get to go set up this foundry. And that's, I think, part of what Intel is doing. They're playing into this made in America, help defend the position by, again, not replacing or duplicating what is being manufactured in Asia, which is, you can't, but just enough so that you have redundancy here in the U.S. And so Intel becomes your fallback, basically. It's actually pretty smart.
Was this stimulated by the chip shortage or other economic forces? Was it just, oh my God, we better have our own capacity of our own?
Yeah, I think the chip shortage, we're feeling that right now, right? People can't buy cars, refrigerators. Think of any piece of equipment that doesn't have a chip in it. Everything has a chip in it. So if you can get some of that manufactured here, where you're not beholden to other supply chains around the world, and it's not just making them, someplace else. It's getting them here. Transportation, right? There's a shortage now of shipping containers and truckers, all of that. So it's pulling that, problem out of your way, at least enough so that you can take care of some redundancy. And that's really what this Made in America initiative is part of. There's money going into it because people recognize just how much the U.S. is at the mercy of other supply chains around the world.
Even the Defense Department is in this. The Defense Department enlisted Intel to increase American foundry capacity. They pointed out that 80% of the chips that we use are made in Asia. 80% of leading-edge manufacturing capacity concentrated in Asia, leaving the Department of Defense with limited onshore access to foundry technology. And there's this security concern. Huawei is a perfect poster child for this. We don't dare use their stuff in our 5G networks. So there is a economic reason to do this. There's a national security reason to do this. And Intel's the last company in America that still makes chips. So it's really natural. It's going to come down on its shoulders. It's really an opportunity, I guess.
Yeah, well, let's remember the U.S. government spends $600 billion on parts. That's the purchasing power of the government, and they want.
Is that a year?
Yep, $600 billion annual purchasing budget. And they now have requirements about what percentage of what you're selling them has to be made in the U.S. So if Intel can capture more of that, it's an easy win.
Yeah.
If they can do it.
Yeah.
That's the big question.
It's one of their last hopes of survival because Intel is dead in the water. They better start doing everything they can to hold on to some kind of market share and reliability. So good luck.
Yeah.
Intel.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Actually, I wish them the best. Absolutely. Yeah.
No, they have the workstation market, the PC market is still huge.
But don't you think it's slipping?
I don't think so. You'll be surprised. I think you'll be surprised what Intel will come out with. And obviously we already know the Alder Lake platform is almost identical to the M1 platform. It's just got power issues comparably,
but that's
I
a
think
big
they'll get
point
that under control.
For network operations centers. Power is a big cost problem,
Sure.
right?
Yep. I mean, look, if you look at AWS, they have their Graviton processor, right? They did that for a purpose. And again, can't forget that Amazon's, I think they're the stealth organization out there. They do electronics too, and now they're doing servers and as well as AMD, ARM processors as well. But the same thing with Intel is I think they will figure it out. Will they go ARM? No, but I think that they will figure it out and they will make something. I mean, everyone talks about mobile processors. When we talk about data center, they still dominate. And I think AMD and Intel will continue to dominate unless ARM can figure out how to be in the data center and to be efficient in the data center.
Great article in Ars Technica by Tim DeChant talking about kind of the history of this. And I wasn't aware of this, but one of the reasons TSMC has succeeded is because they had so many customers. Because they were making chips for hundreds of different customers had different needs, different technologies, more advanced technologies, and it allowed TSMC to build skill sets in a broad range of areas in the latest technology to build machines. These are very expensive machines in these more modern technologies. And so when the time came, they were really well positioned to become a leader in chip fabrication. It was our mistake, not becoming a foundry company. It was a mistake in this country not to really encourage these foundries. This is a extreme ultraviolet lithography machine, an example of the very, very high tech machines used to design chips. Each one of these machines, there's a quote in here, costs $120 million. And to be a chip fab, you might have to buy a dozen or more every year for the next several years. That gives you some idea of how difficult this is. And this is bleeding edge technology. So, this is one of the reasons we always talk about why didn't Intel get past 10 nanometers? Well, it's things like this. And how did TSMC get to 5 nanometers so much more quickly? By being a foundry, working for many, many different companies, they were able to develop that skill
Funded
set.
by somebody else, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Excellent article about this. And I agree with you, Lou. I want Intel to succeed. I want them to survive, just as I want AMD to survive. AMD's a much smaller company, but faced with many of the same challenges. What about NVIDIA? Do you think NVIDIA, first of all, do you think they will succeed in their attempt to buy ARM? It looks like they're getting some severe headwinds in Europe. Connie, what do you think of the prospects of NVIDIA buying ARM?
Yeah, I don't know, honestly. I think I know why they want to buy ARM. NVIDIA.
For a lot of money, by the way, significant.
Well, they're looking at the future and they're trying to
$40 billion.
Yeah. Whether they will or not, that's an open question. There's a lot of, this is kind of an aside, but there's a lot of fear of tech companies right now around the world.
No kidding.
Every merger and acquisition is getting, extra scrutiny, and certainly the EU is much more aggressive about scrutinizing all of those deals than we are in the US. That's not to say we're not scrutinizing them, but we're not doing it at the level that the EU has been doing it. So that is, I think that is the underlying issue, is that they can't anticipate what they're signing off on, and so there's hesitancy to sign off on these kinds of deals.
Yeah. I have high hopes for NVIDIA. I feel like they're doing a lot of great innovation. They do not make their own chips, however, just like ARM. They're an architecture company, not a foundry. So maybe this is a nice hand-in-hand with Intel. I don't know.
I think they might be too late, though. I think, once Apple bought these companies, they started with ARM, and now they've built their own architecture off of the architecture. And now they're different from ARM in some sense. And they don't necessarily have to pay.
They don't need ARM at this point, right?
They don't need it anymore. Yeah. I think they might be too late. I think that's what I think here.
Interesting. Yeah. In fact, I've seen articles that say NVIDIA will do just fine. Here's one from Forbes. But ARM, well, that's another matter. They may struggle.